Well, I guess it's another super team for LeBron James after all, isn't it? Oh, my God. I didn't fully believe that somebody would actually proactively seek out to trade for Russell Westbrook. Why would you want Westbrook? Why? But should have known that somebody would defy all logic and say, yeah, we want us some of that action. And it was the Los Angeles Lakers, apparently. I mean, this was a pretty big bombshell type of deal to drop yesterday, right as we were getting ready for the 2021 NBA draft. The Los Angeles Lakers send, I'm going to get all the package here right, Kyle Kuzma, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, Montrezl Harrell, and the 22nd overall pick in the draft to the Washington Wizards to receive and return Russell Westbrook. Interesting to say the least. More super team garbage. Here we go. Now, some of you are going to sit there and say, oh, how can you say it's a super team, but you're sitting there and crapping on the thought of Westbrook there, and you're crapping on Westbrook the player. KD, Kyrie, Harden, like I have different knocks against all three of those guys. That doesn't mean that they're not a super team. Not a hard concept to grasp here. Like the Lakers said, we've got to sit there and dump all of our assets to go for a big three. Because that's the way they feel apparently is the best choice that they have, the best chance that they have to win another title. Because you saw some of the recent reports talking about concerns within the Lakers organization about just how large that window of opportunity to compete for a championship really is. And whether or not it's over. And it's a valid question. You got LeBron on the wrong side of 36 now. Was he 36? Yeah. You got AD is a walking injury waiting to happen, it seems like, all the time. I mean, don't get me wrong. LeBron James and Anthony Davis got the job done. They got a title. Anything else for the Lakers, and all of your years of pain and suffering, anything else they do after that is gravy. Smooth, no lumps. They got a title. That worked. It absolutely was a deal that you do 100 times out of 100. If you could sign a LeBron James and deal with all that comes with LeBron James, both the good and some of the negative, and you trade for an Anthony Davis, and you win a championship with that, who in the fuck wouldn't take that? I certainly would in Chicago, and any other logical, rational thinking fan of an NBA team would do the exact same thing. You'd sell all out to win one more championship. And that's clearly what the Lakers are doing here. They feel like they've got to get another big name. They feel like they've got to get another star presence in that lineup for them to have a realistic shot to get past teams like the Suns or maybe even the Nuggets or whoever the case might be. But especially if they're envisioning, hey, we can handle the West next year, but if we got to go up against the East, like how are we going to contend with Giannis and Drew and Chris Middleton or the Brooklyn Nets with KD, Kyrie, and Harden? Like, you could see this move wasn't so much made with the thought of getting out of the West, although if you believe that Golden State is going to be back in the fold next year as a contender with Clay coming back, maybe they did. But it almost feels like this was a move that was made in anticipation of you're potentially thinking you're going to either face the Bucks or the Nets in the finals next year, and you need to be able to match up. And from that lens, maybe it makes sense. But in a lot of ways, I just think this deal is really stupid. Now, I want to ask Lakers fans a serious question. How concerned should you be that this is now going to be Russell Westbrook's fourth team in 4 years? Fourth team! Fourth team! Doesn't that tell you something? It's a 9-time All-Star. He's going to be a Hall of Famer. He is a Hall of Famer. And yet he's such a pain in the ass that people don't want to deal with him that he's on his fourth team in 4 years. And it's not like he's signing a bunch of one-year contracts and bouncing himself from place to place. It was basically Oklahoma City saying, you know what? PG-13 and Westbrook aren't going to get us past a certain point. So why bother? So they trade off Paul George, and then they say, yeah, we'll go ahead and humor Russell Westbrook. We'll trade him somewhere else. He goes to Houston to play with James Harden. And then once the Rockets realize this ain't going to fucking work, Russell Westbrook requested a trade. No, they wanted to get out of that frickin' contract, and they were desperate to do so because they knew they had made a dumb dick decision in Houston. To where now Washington brings him in because they wanted to get rid of the John Wall contract, which I understand. But they bring him in, and they quickly realize you're only going to go but so far with Russell Westbrook and Bradley Beal, and Beal's not the problem, and it's stunting the development of other young players on the Wizards because they're terrified of fucking the stat hog, the stat chaser, Russell Westbrook. To where Washington says after a year, you know what, we're good. Doesn't that concern you a little bit? 3 other teams the past 3 years have had this 9-time All-Star, this future Hall of Famer, and decided to punt him somewhere else. If that doesn't concern you, then I feel like you're just being incredibly delusional or being all fanboyish, getting caught up in the specter of, oh my God, look at the names. The names are nice, but the names don't mean everything, damn it. Because you're thinking you're going to get 27 a game, 11 points, or 11 boards and 11 assists Russell Westbrook every night. You ain't getting that. And if you were, how much of a big step back do better players like Anthony Davis and LeBron James have to take in order for this to happen? Now, you could make an argument and say that a guy like Russell Westbrook might help you a little bit more in the regular season, take some of the pressure off of LeBron and AD, sit there and allow you to rest those guys a little bit more, keep them fresher for the playoffs, which is going to be especially critical with the injury history of AD and the increasing age of LeBron James. But even if that is true, what the hell happens once you get to the postseason? You remember in the bubble when they played the Rockets, the Lakers, back in the 2020 playoffs, how much they would sag off of Russell Westbrook because they had no respect for his jump shot at all, because they know all these years later he's still shit as a jump shooter. Absolute drizzling dog shit. So if they knew that's how you defend him, just sag off of him and let him jack it up. You're going to sit there now and bring him in and think it's going to be any different? You're going to talk about playmaking, how they'll do in transition. Okay. You might be exciting in transition, but are you going to play at a fast enough pace to where Russell Westbrook could be close enough to what Russell Westbrook needs to be, and AD can get what AD needs to get, and LeBron can get what he needs to get? I don't buy that. Especially if you're trying to keep AD and LeBron healthy. Furthermore, now you're putting such an incredible amount of pressure on these 3 guys that you, even if you want to say, well, now at this point, some people are going to want to play for them on veteran minimums. They might get a Blake Griffin to come in or these other guys to come in. And that still ain't a guarantee of shit. Like the Lakers won the championship last year, got a guy like Montrezl Harrell to take well under market value to come to them, and they didn't win this year. They got the Marc Gasols to come in. Like, you see what I'm getting at? Like, you start chasing these names instead of chasing the fit and the style of play and the basketball that they could play together. What's the spacing going to look like? What's the ball movement going to look like? You're already a very heavy isolation offense as it is. Any offense that's going to have a talent like LeBron James is going to be very isolation heavy. That's his game. Then you throw in an AD, he's certainly going to play a lot of iso ball. Now you're going to throw a very ball-dominant guard into the mix? And on a team with AD and LeBron, why in the hell would you want to sit there and do what other teams have done and tell the big men to back off so you get the ball in Russell Westbrook's hands quicker? Why would you do that? That makes no damn sense. So you bring in a point guard on the opposite side of 30, who you could argue maybe is still in his prime, but he's at the back end of his prime. He's starting to decline a little bit. He's a guy that, yes, he's put up great numbers, but again, what the fuck have those numbers for Westbrook really meant? Especially for the teams that he's played on in recent years, like the Wizards and the Houston Rockets and the freaking Thunder. Where the hell's the spacing? Where's the ball movement? Where's the perimeter shooting? Like, if you had followed this up immediately by saying there was some type of package with Schroeder and Taylor Horton-Tucker is coming for a Buddy Hield type. Like, you're getting a floor spacer there. Like, that's one guy that can space the floor. Good. It's not enough, but it's good. It's a start. Like, I'm afraid that so many people just get so caught up in the name and the specter of, man, you got these 3 All-Stars, these 3 future Hall of Famers, that they're automatically going to gel together. It's automatically going to work. It's automatically going to make sense. And the truth is, it fucking doesn't. Now, you might sit there and point to a Brooklyn and say, yeah, you know, Brooklyn had KD and Kyrie and Harden, and when they were healthy on the floor together, it worked. Well, part of the problem was they weren't really healthy all together on the floor at the same time very much. But even then, those are different players, different styles. Like, it's not quite the same. And none of them, even as much of an isolationist ball hog as a James Harden could be, is going to be of the same level of ball hog and stat chaser as Russell Westbrook. And again, we get to this whole thing. People are going to be captivated by the triple doubles. You know, he's doing that when he's only got one other dude to contend with. In Washington, it's Bradley Beal. In Houston, it's James Harden. In Oklahoma City, it's Paul George. So he could still do that. Now, you bring him into the fold. There are only so many shots, so many assists, so many rebounds to go around. So you're not getting peak Russell Westbrook, MVP of the league, averaging 27-28 as part of a triple-double. You're not getting that dude anymore. Nor can you, based off of the fit, based off of the system, based off of what the Lakers are going to have. And you think the way to help win another championship is bring in a guy who consistently has shit the bed in the playoffs over the years? Like, help me understand that. Help me make sense of that. Because it makes absolutely no damn sense to me whatsoever. It just doesn't. Westbrook's not bringing you a ton on the defensive side. He's bringing you nothing as a guy that can stretch the floor. He's bringing you nothing as a jump shooter. All this talk of, well, they'll be able to, you know, create more off the dribble, blah, 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 blah. I thought that's what they said about this past year's Lakers team. And what the hell did that do for him? This just feels like one of these deals that's going to be an abject failure. I saw somebody on Twitter last night compare it to the Kobe Bryant, Dwight Howard, Steve Nash shit. And I don't think it's quite to that level, but I certainly see the comparison there. And don't feel it's that crazy, although Russ isn't as close to the end of his career as Steve Nash was at that time. You know, but it's not that crazy to compare it to that. And how did that work out? You know, you could come back here next June, July and tell me how wrong I was because the Lakers won an NBA title. But man, you basically are gutting the infrastructure of your team, which means even if you get guys to come in on veteran minimums and mid-level exceptions and all this other garbage, you still got to gel together as a team. You still got to get it together. LeBron's not getting any younger. AD's not getting any healthier. Westbrook's not getting any younger. Like, this just feels like a desperate attempt by Rob Pelinka and the Lakers front office to try and do something because they were kind of hamstrung and didn't really have a ton of options, and this was the best thing that they could think of and gives them maybe a 2-year window to really seriously think about it. But even when you see some of the reports that we're talking about, the Lakers front office, the organization was very mixed on this, and it was LeBron and AD that were okay with this and signing off on this. Like, this could be an example of a situation where you don't always want the players making all the damn personnel decisions. Because you're bringing in your bros and your buddies instead of the people that are actually going to help you win the thing that you claim you want to win the most, which is championships. Russell Westbrook and his 0 NBA titles, his choking ass, his poor ass shooting ass, ain't going to help you with that. Unbelievable. Lakers fans, if it works, then you got an extra bonus championship or something. If it doesn't work, you still got LeBron and AD to give you a championship, so don't be crying too fucking much. You don't know anything about hard times as a fan. You really don't. But, I mean, if I had to put money on it, like, I'm sure Adam Silver wants to see the Lakers and the Nets in the finals next year, but do I think it's likely that that matchup happens? No. Why would I? Why would any of you at this point, unless you're just too caught up in the names to pay attention to the basketball piece of it?